It's 9:05. Thank you very much for giving us your time this morning to give us a report back on India. It was an exciting trip that we did, and I just want to introduce Gillian Lang, who's the CEO of the WMO, as well as Lizelle Pretorius, obviously the CEO of SAMAC. Hopefully you know who she is. Essentially, we went over to India for two criteria. Firstly, to investigate what the WMO has been done there over the last year and the results of that. And then secondly, to attend the MEWA conference. MEWA in Hindi means dried fruit. And the conference is it's an inaugural conference set up by the Indian trade and just looked at the dried fruit and nut trade within India. So this occurred in the second week of Feb, and we're excited to give you the report back today. How we're going to do the session is I will chair the session and ask a number of questions of both Gillian and Lizelle. And then right at the end of the session, we will allow opportunities for questions and answers. A number of you filled out questions when you registered for this hour, and some of those questions we will obviously look at in the presentation today. So with that, Gillian, can I ask you to kick us off? Give us some history behind the Indian market, the context of that Indian market, and what your team has done there over the last 12 to 14 months.
Great. So when we set up the WMO about 2.5 years ago, we had three markets which we chose to focus on: China, the US, both ingredients and consumer, but also India, which we called a seeding market at that time. We thought that India was of interest because it's a very big nut consumption country, but actually a very small macadamia country. Actually, macadamias were barely known at all, and we thought that there's no real reason sort of knowing about India, the segment of high wealth individuals and their interest in increasing interest in health and wellness. We had a hypothesis that macadamias could do well there, and we decided to work out what we could do to work out our strategy for approaching the market and to validate that assumption that there was an opportunity. Spoiler alert, there is a huge opportunity, which is great, and we'll talk more about how we've reached those conclusions. But I think it's great news for the industry overall. In terms of when I say it's a big nut market, in terms of consumption volumes, 300,000 tons of cashews in a year, 175,000 tons of almonds. Most of those come from California, and India is now the #1 market for Californian almonds. It was China for a long time, and the US. 72,000 for walnuts and 37 for pistachios. So this is thousands of tons. We're believing that we can get to a good 7,000 or 10,000 tons for macadamias in the next 5-ish years, and that's still there's probably headroom above that as well. So what we did, how do you start in the India market? We obviously did a lot of desk research, and I'm an international food marketer, and I've had already been to India probably about 5 times in the context of work before starting on this project. The first thing we did was do a market visit and met with a lot of the trade. We commissioned some consumer research. I spent time, one thing I really believe in inside people's homes. So talking to our hypothesized target, going inside their homes, looking inside their pantries, talking to them about their lives and how they see nuts fitting, or how nuts fit into their lives, and also giving them macadamias to taste and see what they thought of them. We met with bloggers and influencers and the head of the Dietetics Association and a whole lot of people. And out of that, we built up a hypothesis around who our target audience was, and we called her Pooja. She's a very wealthy woman from Delhi. She's got one youngest child and a husband. She works. She has a lot of money, has always had a lot of money, and is very and is very socially connected. She likes to know about new things and to share those with her friends. And really importantly for Pooja, she gets her information about what to eat from a dietitian. So she might be quite a healthy weight and all of those things, but a part of her life is to go to a dietitian or a nutritionist to get advice on food, or sometimes to a life coach to get a more holistic view on how she should live her life. And in these women's words. So this is the advantage of talking to them directly. They said, and I'll eat these nuts if my dietitian prescribes them for me. So they talk about a prescription they get. So it was a real clue that we needed to get dietitians on board, as well as to raise awareness with consumers. And of course, there's no point in having those things if you haven't got awareness or availability in the trade. So we also met with the various parts of the trade, and we came out thinking that there would be an opportunity. As it's turned out, it's gone probably better and quicker and faster than we were expecting, and that's where we're at. The volumes are still small at the moment, but we're seeing a huge growth on all of the measures, which indicate that it will snowball over time.
Thanks, Gillian. Moving on to you, Lizelle. Both you and I toured these retailers as well as the markets where these promotions had been done and weren't being done. Give us your take on what you saw.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. What was quite interesting about India comparing it to other markets is that a large volume of purchasing is taking place, like Gillian just mentioned now, and Miles, is taking place through traditional markets, and a very small volume, about 20%, go through retailers. So while we were visiting the stores, there was a lot of macadamia products available on the stores, but also interesting, in one store there was about 5 brands of macadamias available. In one shop we saw macadamias in the sense that it was not on display, and if you asked for it, they basically took it out of the fridge to prolong the shelf life of the macadamias. Very importantly, like Gillian said, the good work that the World Macadamia Organization did in terms of education dietitians, when we purchase or engage with the traders, they were very well informed about the health benefits of macadamia. So obviously all those efforts went into the correct direction, that the sellers, the traders know about it, and obviously so is the consumers. So yeah.
Yeah, one thing I also noticed is that macadamias sit alongside Brazil nuts and a category called exotic nuts. So they are seen as a premium nut, which is quite exciting to see. Gillian, from a marketing perspective, we've seen this huge uptake from a very low base in a very short period of time. What can you tell us about these results?
I can talk about the results, but before I do that, any of you who are on Instagram or Facebook, I'd encourage you to go Love Macadamia India, all one word, love Macadamia India, and follow our social channels, because it will give you a really good sense of how we're talking about macadamias and just the activity and user-generated content and all of those things there. So if you're on those platforms, I suggest that in some ways it will give you a great feel. So there's a couple of things that we've seen that have been exciting, and it's hard to get real data in India. So what we're doing in terms of import data and things, it's a little bit clouded at the moment. But what we're doing is what I call sort of the store visit test, and going to see the same point of retail and getting a whole lot of data points from there. So one of these, and I'll show you a photo of it shortly, that Lizelle and Miles and I visited, was a place called the INA Market in Delhi. And so this is like it's a traditional market, but there's about 4 or 5 or 6 stores selling nuts within it. And when I was there in August 2022, macadamias, no macadamias. I was back there in November last year, and it was just towards in the Diwali season. And macadamias, yes, we've got macadamias. What are people buying them for? They're buying them for, sort of a Diwali, for gifting, not kind of quite a mixed answer. And they were selling between sort of 30 to 50 kilograms a month. So there was none sold before that, and this is just one store in a market, and there's many markets. When we were there this last time, we asked the same question, and the volumes even post Diwali were in a similar range. But what was exciting was like, who's buying them? And it's people are coming in and buying them because their dietitian has told them to. So we didn't script this. This is the guy in the store, who said, people are coming because their dietitians have told them, which is, as a marketer, very exciting when you sort of hear your strategies being played back at you. Many different points of purchase, and we'll talk about the recent trade show, and we know that there's more and more trade that are interested and engaged. So those are in the traditional markets, where often the nuts come in bulk, and then they might be roasted or and salted or whatever, and then packed into vacuum packs and sold in 200-gram lots. In this particular store, in INA or standard INA market, in November there was 1 SKU. In February, when we just went, there was 2 SKUs. So they had style 0, style 1, which has been the traditional one, and then they had a smaller whole size as well to get a lower price point. And we heard that overall that they're looking at expanding the styles, just partly because they know that Indians are value conscious, but also because there's probably not enough style 0s and 1s in the world to meet the growing demand. We also have done some promotions in the supermarket, so in the modern trade, and we've had people on stands and sometimes nutritionists there sampling macadamias, giving out little test tubes with glass test tubes with macadamias in, and also the stores have brought in new packages, new SKUs to support the promotion. What's been most exciting about these is that the volume has gone. It's gone to sort of 5 times the prior sales volume during the promotional period, which is a great result, but it's not really what happens in the promotional period that makes a difference. What happens after that. So that lift of 5 times has come back to a lift of 4 times in the 3-month period afterwards, which I've never seen in any other category or market that I've worked in. So basically, we're getting an expected peak through the promotional period, but the extended high level, 80% of the peak over 3 months, is an outstanding result, and it really indicates that consumers are coming back and purchasing because of distribution and because of awareness. So those are the main things that we're doing. The great thing about marketing in India is you get a lot for your money, especially if you're working with someone as talented and connected as the in-market agent that we have there. So we're finding that there's that we're getting, for the investment we're making, we're getting some great results, and lots of PR and lots of a big spin-on effect for what we're doing.
Yeah, and just to echo what Gillian said, the agency that we've got involved with in India has a huge amount of contacts across the big major retailers, the retailers in the major cities that we're targeting, as well as the trade and importers. So it's exciting to see that particular agency and what they can do for us. That excitement extended to the trade show that we attended. The trade show is, for those who know, is probably a hybrid between the PT and PA and the hybrid between the PT and PA, that is the US and the INC. So a lot of on-stage discussions on a roundtable basis, but then a lot of trade walking the floor and a lot of trade meetings taking place. This excitement didn't only stop in the markets and the retailers, but there was further excitement when we're looking at the trade show. Lizelle, maybe you can talk to what happened at the trade show and what you saw there.
Yeah. What was exciting about the whole MEWA trade show is we had one big Love Macadamia stand, of which the World Macadamia organization was in the middle, and we were on the right-hand side, SAMAC. And we had a continuous flow of importers, traders, retailers that were passing by and having inquiries about macadamia. They were really hungry to know more about macadamias. Like Miles said, it's seen as an exotic nut, like the Brazil nuts. They were hungry for a lot of more information, and obviously they wanted to know where can they purchase macadamias from. On top of that, we were really fortunate in the sense that there was a lot of airtime given to macadamias compared to all the other nuts that was also at this trade show. We also had the opportunity to present. From myself, I presented about Macadamia South Africa and our products. Gillian also did a presentation there as well. And on top of that, there was an Indian celebrity chef. She did a cooking demonstration, and even the largest retailer in India joined on the stage. So it really showed you that there was really a lot of opportunities for us and a lot of opportunities going forward with these trade shows.
Awesome. Thanks, Lizelle. Gillian, we've obviously pushed the snowball. How do we get the snowball rolling properly going forward?
Well, India is a big market, 1.4 billion people. I don't think probably in our lifetime all 1.4 billion will be eating macadamias, but even if you go for the top 1%, that's 14 million, and we're targeting the top 1%, but there is a trickle down. There's a lot of aspiring upwards, which happens in India. So we're expecting sort of 10% of the population perhaps to be macadamias consumers, 140 million people. So in terms of, we've started the snowball. I think I think our strategy is proving to be a very effective one. So we'd just like to do more. We'd like to probably do more with the dietitians and reach out to we've sort of started with a handful of celebrity ones, and then they are talking on their social channels, and others are picking up on that. So we've sort of started a snowball there, but there is opportunity to actually more formally engage with more dietitians in a number of forums, and potentially also to maybe do some India-specific exploratory work around. They're very interested in omega-3 and the omega-3/6 ratio that macadamias have, because they don't cause inflammation like other foods and potentially other nuts do, and also interested in omega, the monounsaturated fats to omega 9 and 7. So more in the nutritional space, we know that the stores that we've sampled in versus the stores we haven't have much better range of products and offtake. So I just think that selectively choosing the stores where we think that our Pooja is going to be shopping is important. Just a little note about Pooja. She's got help at home, so she's got staff, a lot of staff, which but she is likely to buy macadamias the first time herself, and then after that she's likely probably to get her, once they become a regular item, for her to get people to do the shopping on her behalf. But there is a making sure that the distribution points are where she shops, the high-end supermarkets, but also probably where her team shop, which is more in the market space as well. Everyone's after a good quality but a good deal there. And then so the trade is the second bit, and then the third part is just consumers. We want awareness and nutritional understanding. We have got to, I think, on Instagram, 16.9 thousand followers in just over a year, and also we have websites and other information. We're getting a lot of good PR and doing some targeted high-end magazine advertising and things like that. So I think I just think that there is 5, 10, 15,000 tons of world demand available in India, and we should keep positioning macadamias as a premium product, and we'll also, I think, see a snowball into ingredient styles as well. There's some chocolate products, other products that are using different ice cream products, and lots of sort of snack bars, healthy snack bars that I've seen development concepts for. So we expect to see more snacking styles, but also more ingredient styles sold too.
That's awesome news, Gillian. Hopefully holding thumbs for that market. Lizelle, maybe I can, from a SAMAC perspective, what are we doing in this space to encourage our commercial handlers into that space, and how are we helping them in that regard?
Yeah, Miles, I think firstly from SAMAC's point, we are, really wholeheartedly, firmly believe in the good work that the World Macadamia Organization has done, especially in such a short space, and hopefully we can look forward to new further initiatives to have a compounding impact if there's funding available. The important part is what we've seen, like I explained, at the stand, we had the whole time people passing by and inquiries, and we're going to ask our handlers to be definitely present next year at the MEWA Tradeshow to start building those relationships, those networks. We possibly would also maybe do it under the flag of the Live Macadamia. We've seen it work perfectly this year, so we're going to encourage them to attend. And then also what we've commissioned is an investigation into non-tariff barriers to see what they are and how do we work around it, or how do we resolve it. So we started with that, and in our efforts we will continue to lobby with our government and their government to reduce tariffs, but we've also realized that the importance for the Indian government and the Indian people would be also, they've got a high level of unemployment, so it's important also to say to them that by importing macadamias, it can play a bigger role to reduce employment within India as well. So yeah, those are the areas that we're looking into.
But just to echo what Lizelle's saying, because there's often a huge amount of questions around tariffs. The tariff into India for South Africa at the moment is 30%. As a SAMAC board, we understand this is a major hurdle for us into this particular market. And Lizelle spends a considerable amount of her time on all the forums within South Africa trying to encourage that particular to come up on the radar for our South African government. What we will be doing in the future as well is employing somebody within India to lobby on our behalf within India to see if we can bring down that tariff there. At the moment, it's just a lot of hard work and a lot of attending forums and a lot of questioning. But at this stage, there's no outcome for that. However, there is preferential trade into India from least developed countries. Those include Mozambique, Zambia, and Malawi. They would have preferential treatment into that country. So it's something that as a commercial players in South Africa, we look at, and obviously the number of you on this call with probably properties outside of South Africa and other countries that you can look at. From an opportunity perspective, the opportunity is significant going forward, and it's an exciting market. And within India, just to give you some background, there's no one or two retailers or three retailers that dominate the marketplace like you have in South Africa. For instance, in South Africa, if you get into a Checkers or Woolworths, you tend to corner the market. However, in India, there's very few national retailers. There's quite a lot of regional retailers, and there's quite a lot of retailers per the major cities. So as a result, there's enough pie there for everybody, enough slices at that pie for everybody to get involved in. So that's quite exciting to see from a South African perspective. Currently, as Gillian was saying, that the main market is style zeros, but there was quite a lot of interest around style 1, style 1S, as well as styles 2s and 4s in terms of reducing the price point. So it's something that they're uneducated on in terms of what the different styles are and how they can incorporate that into their product offering. So there's a big opportunity there. In terms of the supply chain, one of the kept coming back to us was our high oil content is a problem within India because of their high humidity and the high temperatures over the summer. So it's something that our commercial players need to invest in and invest in partners that will hold that supply chain so that we're not delivering rancid nuts into India. A lot of the report backs was roasting on site and then distributing from a number of importers seems to be the way they're getting around that. But even in the supermarkets and even in the traditional markets, the nuts were being refrigerated. So it's good to see that education's already happened. So there's a significant opportunity ahead of us. There's lots of work that needs to be done from Gillian and her team. And from a SAMAC perspective, as you all know, our international marketing campaign is through the WMO, and therefore we will wholeheartedly continue to support them in that regard and hopefully be able to do additional ad hoc projects into India this year to get that ball going. If I can ask maybe Gillian just to run through a few photos and slides and give a bit of context behind what that Indian market looks like and the different aspects that we've seen over the last 14 to 16 months. And then thereafter, if you can just post your questions and that question and answer on the top parts of the chat, and we will then get to questions and answers after Gillian's gone through that slide of photos.
Great. Oops. from the beginning here, so I've made these slightly chronological to show you the types of things we did. So this is back in 2022, and when we did a lot of exploratory work. So on the left-hand side there, we actually just set up a booth inside one of the shared workspaces we work, and intercepted people as they were walking by and got them to taste macadamias. You can see some little test tubes in the background there with 5 macadamias in. We'd give them samples. We got them to fill in surveys, and these are wealthy onto it sort of people, and we got a whole lot of insights from there. The next photo over is inside a puja style woman's home. So this particular woman lived in an apartment, and we went and interviewed them and asked a number of questions, and then did a lot of trade visits. This particular store is a ag fund store in Bangalore, and they do have macadamias there. They had less in the hopper because of the keeping the product fresh, and they were sort of selling to high-end movie stars and people like that. They said were the people who seem to have some awareness of macadamias and buying them. So more visits. Is this guy on the left here is he's the head of the Food Bloggers Association. This is Muncie, who we talk about together with me. She's the director of pro marketing, and has really been a huge part of our success. And on the right here, we got a number of influencers, nutritionists and lifestyle influencers, and had a dinner at a restaurant that was that we were able to get them to, that they came along and tried macadamias often for the first time. This is that store that I was talking about, where there were no macadamias. Then there was one at 30 to 50 kilograms, and then 2 SKUs. So this is what we'd call the informal market. And as I say, within this sort of open air but sort of semi-refrigerated air-conditioned space, there was, I think, about 6 shops selling macadamias. Those decorations relate to Diwali. And so more photos in store. On the left-hand side is more modern retail. So we're seeing more in bulk bins. Back at the beginning, we're seeing more packaged products now, and then on the right-hand side is the less formal trade. And here's some of the products available. A little bit of nut and shell, but only with the key inside and the sawn, but mostly kernel available and packaged usually in about 200-gram lots. The value add, starting to see products like this chocolate bar with beautiful packaging. In the middle there is macadamias inside prunes. I also sampled some at one of the trade with macadamias inside dates, which were an amazing combination. I personally preferred it to prunes, so something to try for visitors or things. And then gifting. This is probably a more low market gifting offer, but wedding gifting is huge, and we're starting to see macadamias come into the higher end gifting offers. Here's some images from MEWA. You at the bottom right is our stand. You can't quite see in this picture, but there's a big love macadamia across the top, and then this is the team that we had there. The sampling with the cooking show with the chef Raki, who's in the purple there, and at the top just lots of people engaging, and more images here around people engaging and us talking about macadamias. As Miles said, we got a lot of mileage for our investment at MEWA. The Indian trade are really interested in growth, and I think they see macadamias as a growth story, and part of the reason why there was a lot of interest and a lot of space for us. And this literally came through 10 minutes before I joined this call, but some of you might have heard that there was a huge Indian wedding, and they're calling it the big fat Indian wedding after the big fat Greek wedding, and it was the son of the wealthiest man in India. There's the Ambani, and Rihanna, who's not played live for 7 years, was flown over, and she performed at this at this wedding, or the pre-celebrations for this wedding. And what was super exciting is, if you read in that text, which I've cut and pasted, they're talking about these one bowl desserts, and then they talk about next cheddar, which is like a cottage cheese, was thickened with milk, flavoured with jaggery, which is like a palm sugar sort of thing, and macadamia nuts, and garnished with roasted nuts. So this is huge coverage. I've seen a lift in our social followings in the last 24 hours, and this will be what's part of that. We've had requests from the Times of India, which this was published in, for follow-up recipes and things like that. So this type of coverage is well, we couldn't have scripted this. It's fantastic. They included macadamias in it, and it's because it's known as a luxury and premium and on-trend nut.
Thanks very much, Gillian. I think we can open up for questions. If you can either post your questions in the questions and answers, or just raise your hand with that raise hand button at the top of the thing. So we'll open up for a few questions. Is there any questions, please?
Mark, there's just one in the chat. Presumably very little nut and shell. Our main competitors in India, other Asian producers like Vietnam, is the question. Yeah.
So historically, from a competitor within India, about a year or 14 months ago, Gillian's research showed that South Africa was the dominant player in India. Over the last 12 to 14 months, with Australia starting to get a tariff reduction, their tariff is now reduced down to 17%. And as a result, Australia are starting to see more and more Australian nuts that are arriving into India at the moment. It's very difficult to get the import data. It's very clouded. It's coming through different directions, and it's a difficult number to put to have in a hand at the moment. In terms of Indian production, India don't produce any macadamia nuts. They don't know what a macadamia nut is, and as a result, it's an imported market.
I believe that probably a few people, well, I know there's been a couple of inquiries of where they could, what would be the best cultivar and things. It's not something we get involved in, but I expect, knowing India, that they will probably try and grow, and of course being a big geographical space, whether there is space or not. So that no production at the moment, or only perhaps a few trees, but I would expect that there might be some interest in it, but obviously it will still be at least 5 to 7 years away.
Gillian, a question for you. Has Pakistan been considered as a market?
Pakistan? No, we haven't considered it as a market, but potentially off the success of this, in terms of opening up markets, I think we would have to have a look at all other options. I think Indonesia is another market that could be interesting. But yes, if I don't know enough about the nut consumption, and I know about some of the sensitivities between the two countries, but not looked at yet. We believe that there's a big job to do for a while in India. Of course, a lot of the neighbouring countries do look to India to see where the trends are at. So I would expect some natural flow over, but I can't answer directly on Pakistan.
So Lizelle, a question for you. How long do you think we'll take to reduce the tariff? Key KPI.
Yeah, I think it's very important, and I'm glad that question is posed. It's important to highlight that it's one government to another government that needs to engage. SAMAC can only continue to knock on those doors and be the oil in the machine. That was on the table for about 7-8 years, and the committees where I'm sitting on with the Department of Trade and International Affairs, as well as Department of Agriculture, the agreement was taken away last year, and the last meeting they said they're going to discuss it again. The problem that we need to keep into consideration, if you've got like the Australians, a trade agreement, preferably a preferential trade agreement, you need to offer something in exchange for something else. And that's what we've seen with the Chinese market as well. South Africa is not willing to open up their textile manufacturing in exchange for tariffs to be reduced for agricultural commodities like macadamia. So it's difficult to say. It's important to remember it's one government into another government, and we're going into elections this year. So is the Indian counterparts that are also going into election. We can only hope that there's a new government that really gets inspired to reduce those tariffs, because I think we play a huge role in terms of job creation, etc. And we continue to communicate that to government. So unfortunately, I wish there was a easy way out, but we will continue to lobby, like Mal said, within South Africa, but also within India as well.
I don't see any other questions. I'd just like to thank Gillian from all our South African growers. I'd just like to thank you for all the work you've done for us across the world, and particularly this exciting development in India. And thank you very much. And Lizelle, thank you as well for the time you spend in this regard. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and giving us your time this morning. Hopefully you found the hour or the 40 minutes informative. If you do have any questions, you're more than welcome to contact Lizelle. And if you have questions for myself, you're more than welcome to contact me. And if you want to have a conversation with Gillian, give Lizelle a call and she'll put you in touch. But thank you very much, everybody, and have a good day.